Hello everybody, this is Sujit here. I'm the founder of Longman Energy. We have been in the business of renewable energy, to be more specifically solar energy, for the last 8 years. Now what fascinates us as we look into the future is energy storage, to be more specifically or simply batteries. Now batteries have been around for many decades. We have seen them on our TV remotes and our mobile phones, but very soon they're going to get large and significantly big because they're going to power our cars, bikes, trucks, if not trains and planes. Very soon, they're going to power our homes and even the grid that powers our cities as well as states. So, we need to know some very basic of what these batteries are, and more specifically, what to do and what not to do when around these batteries. Now, Longman Energy is a beautiful company that we built 8 years back, and this is where magic happens. And more magic is going to happen at Longman with energy storage. Talking of energy storage, we're going to talk about lithium-ion batteries today because that's what you find in your mobile phones, laptops, electric vehicles, and seems like lithium has got a big role to play in the future as far as energy storage is concerned. Now, a lithium-ion battery essentially has two half cells with a separator in between. One of the half cell has an anode, the other half cell has cathode. The anode is nothing but carbon, in this case graphite doped with lithium. Cathode is mostly cobalt oxide, even though new chemistries have come up to avoid the usage of cobalt. But that's a topic for a different day. Now, both these half cells essentially has electrolyte, which are nothing but lithium salts in an organic solvent as far as lithium-ion batteries are concerned. Now, these lithium salts are so chosen that as soon as the anode comes in contact with the lithium salt, it disintegrates into carbon, lithium ion and electron. What you have to understand is both the lithium ion as well as electron have a tendency to move to the other side, that is cathode, and leaving the carbon here. But they both have their own distinctive paths. Lithium ion can travel to the other side through the electrolyte through the separator, whereas the electron can only travel to the other side through an external circuit. What you also need to understand is they both have some kind of a love pact, wherein the lithium ion tells the electron that I'm going to leave from this side only if you promise to meet me on the other side. So let's provide a lithium ion battery with an external circuit, in this case by plugging it into a cool looking drone and a 4K high definition camera. As we had previously discussed, as soon as there is an external circuit, the lithium ions would love to move to the other side through the electrolyte and the separator, while the electrons would also love to do the same, but through the external circuit. Now, it's these electrons flowing through the external circuits which is actually powering your drone and your camera. Now, let's see what's happening inside the battery. At a chemical level, the lithium ions and the electrons actually combine with the cobalt oxide and form lithium cobalt oxide. Now, this is a very critical component. Why? Because it is this lithium cobalt oxide which can be easily broken down back into cobalt oxide, lithium ion and electron during the charging phase. Now, let's say you had all the fun with your drone as well as your camera. And now your battery is showing you a warning that only 5% charge is left in it. That is, it's 95% discharged. You should actually bring your drone down at this point. You shouldn't let your battery discharge beyond 95%. Why? We will discuss that at a later moment, but for now, be a good boy and bring this drone down. So now the drone is down and your batteries are 95% discharged. That is just 5% charge is left in them. Inside the battery, on the anodic end, you just got carbon, that is graphite, whereas on the cathodic end, you have lithium cobalt oxide. Now you need to charge this battery using a charger. So let's bring in a drone charger and see what happens inside the battery at a chemical level when the charger is recharging the batteries. So now that we have the drone charger attached to the lithium-ion battery, what it's essentially going to do is it will pull the electrons out from the cathode and push them into the anode. Now, as you remember, these electrons had a love pact with the lithium ions. So when they see the electrons reaching the anodic end, they themselves rush towards the anodic end to meet the electrons at that end. At the chemical level, as the lithium ions and the electrons start showing up at the anode, they combine with the carbon or graphite to form what was initially the lithium doped graphite. Now this battery will be fully charged when the anode will have recovered all the lithium ions and the electrons that it had lost during the discharge phase, at which point in time this battery will be once again ready to power your lovely drone with an amazing camera. So we have seen how these lithium-ion batteries function, how they discharge and how they charge. But now let's find out why we shouldn't let these lithium-ion batteries discharge beyond 95%. So this time around, instead of a drone, let's connect this battery to an almost real-life looking, extremely cool dinosaur toy. As previously seen, the moment we connect the battery to an external circuit, the lithium ions are going to travel from anode to cathode, and so are the electrons. The electrons, for obvious reason, will travel through the external circuit, and that's what going to make this dinosaur toy do all the wonderfully amazing things for you. Meanwhile, within the battery, the lithium ions and the electrons are going to combine with cobalt oxide at the cathodic end and form lithium cobalt oxide. All this is fine. We have seen all this happening. But as you keep playing around with the toy, after some time, you get a warning that there's just 5% charge left. That is, it's 95% discharge. Ideally, you should put the battery back to the charger. But then this toy is too cool for you. You just keep playing around. What happens is the warning turns dire. Meanwhile, what you need to understand is inside the battery, there is hardly any cobalt oxide left at the cathodic end because all of that has been converted already into lithium cobalt oxide, which means if you keep bombarding it with more of lithium ions and electrons, it can't form more of lithium cobalt oxide. Instead, it will form lithium oxide and cobalt oxide. Now, these two oxides are extremely harmful for a battery's health because neither of these oxides can be broken down back to cobalt oxide when you connect this battery to a charger, which means essentially you just lost 5% of your battery's charge carrying capacity. And if you keep doing this again and again, you will keep losing more and more of your battery's charge carrying capacity. Now you may ask, how much of my battery charge carrying capacity I'm going to lose every time I discharge it beyond 95%? Well, I done some maths for you and put it on a graph. As you could see, every time you do this, you are essentially losing 5% of the battery's remaining charge carrying capacity. And as the graph tells you, by the ninth time you do it, you would have actually lost 1/3 of your battery's charge carrying capacity. Now, here's the caveat to this. Almost every good lithium-ion battery comes with a BMS or battery management system, which ensures that these degradation levels are not acute and extreme as shown in this graph. But no matter how good the BMS is, you will still continue to lose some of your battery's charge carrying capacity if you keep letting it discharge beyond 95%. What it also means is very soon you will have essentially no charge carrying capacity left inside your battery, which means you would have killed your battery's life too prematurely than what the manufacturer had intended it to have. Do you want that to happen? Well, the answer should be a clear no. So the next time, no matter what you are using these batteries with, mobile phones, toys, or drones, the moment you see a less than 5% charge warning, stop doing whatever you're doing and put the equipment or the battery to a charge. So are there any precautions to be taken while charging these batteries as well? Quite frankly, you got some good news there. Firstly, it's safe to charge these lithium-ion batteries all the way up to 100%. Secondly, is almost all lithium-ion battery chargers come with an automatic supply cutoff, which, as the name suggests, cuts off the charging supply as soon as these batteries are 100% charged and before any damage is done. And that's indeed a good news. But then, what's the damage that we are talking about here? And that's quite frankly the not so good news. Because if these automatic supply cutoff fails, it can lead to overpressurization, followed by a steep rise in temperature and an eventual explosion and fire at these lithium-ion batteries, which indeed is not so much of a good news. But then let's see what's actually happening inside these batteries at a chemical level which leads to all this damage. So if we deep dive into the chemical aspect of the overcharging of a lithium-ion battery, what we find is that the damage happens in three stages, of which the first stage is overpressurization. See, what happens is the role of a battery charger is to move all the lithium ions and electrons from the cathode to the anode. But the job is done as soon as all the lithium ions and electrons have made their move and the battery is fully charged. So at this point in time, if somehow the battery charging supply is still on and overpressurizing the battery, it leads to oxidation of electrolytes. Now, this oxidation of electrolytes leads to generation of many gases such as carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, methane, and many others, of which the most dangerous is the generation of carbon dioxide on the cathodic end, because this leads to a consistent rise in temperature, not just at the cathodic end, but at the whole battery. Now, this rise in temperature, when it crosses the 60 degrees Celsius or 140 Fahrenheit level, it leads to the second stage, which is marked by violent reaction between anode and electrolyte. Now, the violent reaction between anode and its electrolyte can at no time lead to a thermal runaway. What is a thermal runaway? It's just a fancy word for a vicious cycle of overpressurization and rise in temperature, wherein the violent reaction between the anode and its electrolyte is leading to further rise in pressure. The further rise in pressure is leading to more rise in temperature, and the more rise in temperature is leading to more of this violent reaction. And as you must have guessed by now, this vicious cycle of overpressurization and rise in temperature can very easily lead to explosion and fire at the battery. Now, this fire and explosion is not going to destroy the battery, but also the very equipment that it is supposed to power. So be very aware, be very cautious that even if you have an automatic supply cutoff as part of your battery charging equipment, it is always safe to remove the battery charger as soon as it is 100% charged. So as an electric future dawns upon us, we have learned three things about the most prominent of energy storage solutions, that is lithium-ion batteries, as to how they function, why is it not so good if we discharge them beyond 95%, and what all damage can happen if we overcharge them. Now this is just the beginning. We got way more and much more cooler stuff to talk about. Stuff like how lithium-ion batteries came to define energy storage across all sectors and geographies. We'll also talk about the future for energy storage itself with the advent of more efficient technologies such as solid-state batteries around. We'll talk about the future of renewable energy, we'll talk about urban microgrids, we'll talk about blockchain-powered grids and how the combination of all this is going to change the way we generate, consume and pay for our energy and electricity in the future. So stay tuned to Longman Energy channel, subscribe to us and get to know more and more about what the future holds for us and you.